This is the international news on Atlantic Television Network. First, the headlines. Niger Republic, junta revokes military agreement with U.S. Yemen, Houthi rebels detonate explosive near ship. Pakistan, airstrikes target Taliban hideouts inside Afghanistan. Russia, Putin win fifth term with 87.97%. United States, flights carrying citizens from Haiti arrive Miami, Australia, Uber to pay $178 million to cab drivers.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-the-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
These people into the country illegally. That is amazing. Honourables, you human traffickers.
And now the news in details. Niger's junta has ended a military agreement that allowed U.S. personnel to be deployed in the country. This is coming after Saturday's announcement came in the week that a delegation from Washington had been in Miami for talks with the country's military leadership, while the U.S. used its base in Niger to monitor regional jihadist activity. Niger's military spokesperson, Colonel Amadou Abdramane, said in a damning statement, alleged that the U.S. delegation had accused Niger of making a secret deal to supply uranium to Iran. Colonel Abdramane described the accusation as cynical and reminiscent of the Second Iraq War and suggested that the U.S. had raised objections about the allies that Niger had chosen. In 2016, the U.S. began investing around $100 million in a drone base in the central city of Agadez, 750 kilometers northeast of Miami. It was used for surveillance and targeting of Islamic State and Al-Qaeda-linked militants operating in the wider Sahel region. Jihadist activity in the Sahel has created instability in a number of countries, which as well as Niger, has also led to coups in two of its neighboring states, Mali and Burkina Faso. The three countries have now formed a military alliance, while the army in Niger overthrew the elected President Mohamed Bazoum last July, citing the worsening security situation. Top opposition leader Ousmane Sonko vowed Friday to help his team win Senegal's March 2024 presidential election, even though he is barred from the ballot, jumping into the campaign In his first public address since being freed from prison a day earlier, Ousmane Sonko's release late Thursday after months behind bars triggered a mix of jubilation and political uncertainty on the streets of the capital, Dakar. Thousands took to the streets in celebration, reinvigorating enthusiasm for the election that will decide whether the West African in a region that has experienced a wave of coups and attempted coups. A charismatic former tax collector and mayor of the southern city of Ziguinchor, Sonko is seen as the main challenger to President Macky Sall's governing party. His key ally, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who was also freed from prison late Thursday, has been named the opposition's presidential candidate. Their release follows Sall's decree to exonerate political prisoners, including hundreds arrested in the violent protests last year. The message will be short. The important thing is our candidate. We have an election to win. Every hour counts. We have lost a lot of time. We will be on the ground for the victory of our candidate, Sonko said at a news conference. In his brief message, Sonko restated some of his key tenets of his campaign: the need to fight corruption in the government and protect Senegal's economy from the influence of foreign powers. The protests have once again rocked Senegal's image as a pillar of stability in West Africa. Since gaining independence from France in 1960, it has held regular elections and never experienced a coup, unlike many other nations in the Sahel region. Following Sonko's release Thursday night, Dakar was thronged with thousands of people singing and dancing as convoys of supporters drove around tooting horns and young people piled onto motorbikes and trucks. Congo has lifted a more than two-decade-old moratorium in the death penalty as the authorities struggle to curb violence and militant attacks in the country, according to a Justice Ministry statement released on Friday. The statement, dated earlier this week, said the ban from 2003 allowed offenders accused of treason and espionage to get away without proper punishment. Eastern Congo has been riddled by conflict for decades, linked to more than 120 armed groups fighting for land and power and in some cases protecting their communities. The government said the violence in the east has plagued the country with recurrent conflict and resulted in a surge of attacks that have spread terror among the communities. In recent years, the M23 rebel group, the most dominant in the region with alleged links to neighboring Rwanda, has continued to attack villages, forcing many to flee to Goma, the region's largest city. M23 has laid siege to several communities, with about half of North Kivu province under its control. The violence in the province has worsened in recent weeks as security forces battle the rebels. Residents have said the group's fighter mostly launched attacks with bombs out of hills overlooking remote towns. In its statements, the Justice Ministry said capital punishment will be reserved for offenders involved in criminal conspiracies, armed gangs, insurrection, and also those who commit treason and war crimes. It will also be applied to the military, including those who rebel or desert and join enemy ranks. Rights groups have condemned the decision, calling it a step back for the country. This initiative is against the Constitution, said Jean-Claude Katende, president of the African Association for Human Rights. We don't think that capital punishment and the execution of this sentence are appropriate measures to restore order. Heavy fighting has erupted in the Sudanese city of Bari between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. Bari, also known as Khartoum North, is one of the three adjoining cities that make up the capital area. The army said it had repelled a major attack by the RSF on a military base. The fighting came days after the army recaptured the headquarters of the state broadcaster, while the army has reportedly gained ground in recent weeks, taking control of most of the city in Omdurman, which is just across the Nile from Khartoum. This is coming after the United Nations appealed to the warring sides to allow the delivery of humanitarian relief to avert what it called a catastrophic hunger crisis. South Sudan is closing all schools starting Monday in preparation for an extreme heat wave expected to last 2 weeks. The Health and Education Ministries advise parents to keep all children indoors as temperatures are expected to soar to 45 degrees Celsius. They warned that any school found open during the warring period would have its registration withdrawn, but the statement issued late Saturday didn't specify how long schools would remain shuttered. The ministry said they will continue to monitor the situation and inform the public accordingly. Resident Peter Garang, who lives in the capital Juba, welcomed the decision. He said schools should be connected to the electricity grid to enable the installation of air conditioners. South Sudan, one of the world's youngest nations, is particularly vulnerable to climate change, with heat waves common but rarely exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. Civil conflict has plagued the East African country, which also suffered from drought and flooding, making living conditions difficult for residents. The World Food Programme, in its latest country brief, said South Sudan continues to face a dire humanitarian crisis due to violence, economic instability, climate change, and an influx of people fleeing the conflict in neighboring Sudan. It also stated that 818,000 vulnerable people were given food and cash-based transfers in January. The European Union on Sunday announced a 7.4 billion euro aid package for cash-strapped Egypt as concerns mount that economic pressure and conflicts in neighboring countries could drive more migrants to Europe's shores. The deal, which drew criticism from rights groups over Egypt's humanitarian rights record, was signed Sunday afternoon in Cairo by Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The ceremony was attended by leaders of Belgium, Italy, Austria, Cyprus, and Greece. Your visit today represented a very important milestone in the relations between Egypt and the European Union, el-Sisi told visiting European leaders. He said the deal has achieved a paradigm shift in our partnership. The aid package includes both grants and loans over the next 3 years. For the Arab world's most populous country, according to the EU's mission in Cairo, most of the fund's 5 billion euros are macro financial assistance, according to a document from the EU mission in Egypt. The mission said the two sides have promoted their cooperation to the level of a strategic and comprehensive partnership, paving the way for expanding Egypt-EU cooperation in various economic and non-economic areas. The European Union recognizes Egypt as a reliable partner and its unique and vital geostrategic role as a pillar of security, moderation and peace in the Mediterranean, Near East and African region, a joint statement said after the summit. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, whose country played a major role in achieving the deal, lauded it as historic. This initiative shows our willingness to strengthen and encourage a new structural method of cooperation between the two sides of the Mediterranean, she told the Egyptian-EU summit in Cairo. The deal, known as the Joint Declaration, aims, among other things, to promote democracy, fundamental freedom, human rights, and gender equality, according to the European Commission. Both sides will also deepen their cooperation to address challenges related to migration and terrorism. A suspected attack by Yemen's Houthi rebels saw an explosive detonate near a ship early Sunday in the Gulf of Aden, potentially marking their latest assault on shipping through the crucial waterway leading to the Red Sea. The British military's United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Centres said the vessel's crew saw the blast as it passed off the coast of Aden, the port city in southern Yemen, home to the country's exiled government. No damage to the vessel has been reported and the crew are reported safe, UKMTO said. The Houthis have launched repeated drones and missile attacks in the same area, disrupting energy and cargo shipments through the Gulf of Aden. The rebels did not immediately claim responsibility for the attack, though it typically takes the Houthis several hours before acknowledging their assaults. Separately, the U.S. military's Central Command said it carried out a series of strikes targeting the Houthis. It said it destroyed 5 drone boats and 1 drone before takeoff from Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen on Saturday. It was an unusually high number of drone boats to be destroyed. Separately, the U.S. military shot down 1 Houthi drone over the Red Sea, while another was presumed to have crashed. There were no reports of damage or injuries from ships in the vicinity. Central Command said the Houthis have attacked ships since November, saying they want to force Israel to end its offensive in the Gaza Strip against Hamas. The ships targeted by the Houthis, however, largely have little or no connection to Israel, the U.S., or other nations involved in the war. The rebels have also fired missiles towards Israel, though they have largely fallen short or been intercepted. The assaults on shipping have raised the profile of the Houthis, who are members of Islam's minority Shiite Zaidi sect, who ruled Yemen for 1,000 years until 1962. Israeli forces launched another raid in the Gaza Strip, largest hospital, early Monday, saying Hamas's militants had regrouped there and had fired on them from inside the compound, where Palestinian officials say tens of thousands of people have been sheltering. In a separate development, the European Union's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, accused Israel of continuing to hinder efforts to deliver aid to Gaza, saying the territory faces an entirely man-made famine as starvation is used as a weapon of war. The army last raided Shifa Hospital in November after claiming that Hamas maintained an elaborate command center within and beneath the facility. The military revealed a tunnel leading to some underground rooms as well as weapons it said were found inside the hospital, but the evidence fell short of the earlier claims, and critics accused the army of recklessly endangering the lives of civilians. People sheltering in the hospital said Israeli forces, backed by tanks and that snipers were shooting at people inside. They said the army raided a number of buildings and detained dozens of people. "We are trapped inside," said Abdel Hadi Sayed, who had been sheltering in a medical facility for over 3 months. "They fire at anything moving. Doctors and ambulances can't move." Gaza's health ministry said the Israeli army was directing a gun and missile fire at building used for specialized surgeries. It said a fire broke out at the hospital's gate. The ministry said around 30,000 people are sheltering at the hospital, including patients, medical staff, and people who have fled their homes seeking safety. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, the chief Israeli military spokesperson, said the army launched a high-precision operation in parts of the medical complex. He said senior Hamas militants had regrouped there and were directing attacks from the compound. Pakistani airstrikes targeted multiple suspected hideouts of the Pakistani Taliban inside neighboring Afghanistan early on Monday, killing at least 8 people 2 days after insurgents killed 7 soldiers in a suicide bombing and coordinated attacks in the northwest region, officials said. The Afghan Taliban government denounced the strikes, which are likely to further increase tensions between Islamabad and Kabul. According to a Pakistani security official and an intelligence official, the airstrikes were carried out in Khost and Paktika provinces bordering Pakistan. The officials provided no further details. They spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak to the media. There was no immediate comment by Pakistan's military. The Pakistani Taliban, a separate militant group but allied with the Afghan Taliban, also confirmed the strikes, saying the attacks killed several women and children. It was not immediately clear how deep inside Afghanistan the Pakistani jet flew. The airstrikes were the first since 2022, when Pakistan targeted militant hideouts in Afghanistan. However, Islamabad never officially confirmed those strikes. Separately, in January, Pakistani airstrikes in a tit-for-tat exchanges with Tehran hit Pakistani militants inside Iran. Chief Afghan Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said in a statement that Pakistan's airstrike on Monday killed 3 women and 3 children in the district of Bamel in Paktika province, while 2 other women were killed in a strike in Quds province. Such attacks are a violation of Afghanistan's sovereignty, and there will be bad consequences that this country will not be able to control, Mujahid said. On Saturday, 7 soldiers were killed when a suicide bomber rammed his explosive-laden truck into a military post in the town of Mer Ali, a town in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province that borders Afghanistan. Troops responded and killed all 6 attackers in a shootout, the military said. Pakistani President Asif Ali Zardari attended the funerals of the soldiers and vowed to retaliate for their killings, saying the blood of our martyred soldiers will not go in vain. Saturday's attacks on the military post was claimed by a newly formed militant group, Jaish-e-Fursan al-Mohammed. However, Pakistani security officials believe the group is mainly made up of members of the outlawed Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP, which often targets Pakistani soldiers and police. Muhammad Ali, an Islamabad-based security expert, said Monday's strikes were in retaliation for a series of TTP attacks, especially the one on Saturday in Mer Ali, where an army lieutenant colonel and a captain were among those killed. Ali said the Pakistani strikes came within 24 hours of Zardari's promise of strong retaliation. The Indian Navy said late Saturday that it had taken control of a bulk carrier hijacked by Somali pirates and evacuated the 17 crew members on the vessel. In a statement on X, the Navy said all 35 pirates on board the Maltese-flagged MV Ruin had surrendered and the vessel was checked for illegal arms, ammunition and contraband. The whole operation took about 40 hours and involved drones, Navy vessels and Marine commandos. The development came after men on the bulk carrier fired at an Indian warship in international waters on Friday, triggering the Navy to intercept the vessel some 2,600 kilometers off the Indian coast. The vessel was first boarded by pirates December 14 near the Yemeni island of Socotra, around 240 kilometers off Somalia. Activity from Somali pirates has dropped in recent years, but there has been growing concern it could resume amidst the political uncertainty and wider chaos in the region that has included attacks on ships by Yemen's Houthi rebels. India recently began to flex its naval power in international waters, including anti-piracy patrols and a widely publicized deployment close to the Red Sea to help protect ships from attacks during Israel's war with Hamas. The Navy has helped at least 4 merchant vessels that were attacked in high seas by Houthi forces. Indian forces include 3 guided missile destroyers and reconnaissance aircraft. President Vladimir Putin has won the presidential election in Russia with a whopping 87.97% of the vote, according to the early official results of the votes. This means that Putin will spend another 6-year term in office. Correspondence reports that one of the first to react was Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who accused President Putin of simulating another election. This is clear to everyone in the world that this figure, as it has already often happened in the course of history, is simply sick for power and is doing everything to rule forever. He said in a statement, "There is no legitimacy in this imitation of elections, and there cannot be. This person should be on trial in The Hague. That is what we have to ensure." Shortly after, a spokesperson for the White House said the victory is an indicator that elections are obviously not free and fair, given how the leaders have imprisoned political opponents and prevented others from running against them. Russian President Vladimir Putin said early Monday that he supported an idea to release opposition leader Alexei Navalny in a prisoner exchange just days before the man who was his biggest foe died. In his first comments to address Navalny's death, Putin said that dissident's demise, it happens. There is nothing you can do about it. That is life. The remarks were unusual in that he repeatedly referenced Navalny by his name for the first time in years, and that they came at a late-night news conference as results poured in from a presidential election that is certain to extend his rule. Early returns showed him leading with over 87% of the votes in a race with no competition after years of ruthlessly suppressing the opposition and crippling independent media. Navalny's allies last month also said that talks with Russian and Western officials about a prisoner swap involving Navalny were underway. The politician's longtime associate, Maria Pevchik, said the talks were in their final stages just days before the Kremlin critics sudden and unexplained death in an Arctic panel colony. She accused Putin of getting rid of Navalny in order not to exchange him, but offered no evidence to back her claims, and they could not be independently confirmed. Putin said Monday, also without offering any evidence, that several days before Navalny's death, certain colleagues, not from the presidential administration, told him about an idea to exchange Navalny for certain people held in penitentiary facilities in Western countries. He said he supported the idea. "Believe it or not, but the person talking to me didn't even finish their sentence when I said I agree," Putin said in response to a question from a journalist about Navalny's death. He added that his one condition was that Navalny wouldn't return to Russia. But unfortunately, whatever happened, Putin said. Navalny, 47, Russia's best-known opposition politician, died last month while serving a 19-year sentence on extremism charges that he rejected as politically motivated. His allies, family members, and Western officials blamed the death on the Kremlin accusations it has rejected. The politician's associates said officials listed natural causes on paperwork Navalny's mother was shown when she was trying to retrieve his body. Navalny has been jailed since January 2021 when he returned to Moscow of his own accord after recuperating in Germany from nerve agent poisoning he blamed on the Kremlin. He was immediately arrested. The Kremlin has vehemently denied it was behind the poisoning. Pevchik claimed that there was a plan to swap Navalny and 2 U.S. citizens held in Russia for Vadim Krasikov. He was serving a life sentence in Germany for the 2019 killing in Berlin of Zelimkhan Tornike Kangoshev, a 40-year-old Georgian citizen of Chechen descent. German judges said Krasikov acted on the orders of Russian authorities. She didn't identify the U.S. citizens that were supposedly part of the deal. There are several in custody in Russia, including Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich, arrested on espionage charges, and Paul Whelan, a corporate security executive from Michigan convicted of espionage and serving a long prison sentence, and they and the U.S. government dispute the charges against them. State of emergency has been declared in southern Iceland after another volcanic eruption on the Reykjanes Peninsula said, and it is the fourth since December. Lava has reached the eastern defenses around the small evacuated town of Grandavik, while the powerful and fast lava flows began, but the authorities say they have since diminished significantly. The director of Iceland's Civil Defense, Vidar Reynisson, said all that could be done to prepare for the flow of lava had been done, and the biggest concern was the impact on infrastructure. Footage of the explosion showed clouds of smoke and glowing magma oozing and bubbling from the vents of the earth. You are watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this break.
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today. Only on ATN.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human trafficker.
Honorable they are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Welcome back. You are watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Now the rest of our stories. A charter flight carrying dozens of U.S. citizens fleeing spiraling gang violence in Haiti landed Sunday in Miami, U.S. State Department officials said. More than 30 U.S. citizens were on the government chartered flight, officials said in a statement. It arrived in the Miami International Airport after the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince earlier this month urged U.S. citizens to leave as soon as possible as chaos grips Haiti. Passenger Avlot Kessa, who lives in Boston, traveled from the center of the country to board the charter flight after going to Haiti last month for what's supposed to be a week-long trip to visit his mother. It's just terrible, the suffering. You can only imagine, Kessa told the press of the nearby Caribbean nation. Haiti is my homeland, and it is very stressful to see the homeland going through this act of violence, destruction, and they are our neighbors. Haiti's main airport in Port-au-Prince remains closed following gang attacks that have raged through Haiti in recent weeks, pushing many people to the brink of famine. Government and aid agencies this week reported looting of aid supplies as the situation worsened. The State Department announced Saturday that it would offer limited charter flights for American citizens from the less chaotic northern city of Cap Haitien. Officials said they could not provide ground transportation to Cap Haitien and that U.S. citizens should consider the charter flights only if you think you can reach Cap Haitien Airport safely. We encourage U.S. citizens still in Haiti to seek to depart to contact the Department of State using the crisis intake form on our website if they have not already done so, the agency said. People taking the U.S. government coordinated flights must sign a promissory bill agreeing to reimburse the government. A second man has been charged in connection with 2005 theft of a pair of ruby slippers that Judy Garland wore in The Wizard of Oz, according to an indictment made public Sunday. Jerry House Solitman, 76, of Crystal, Minnesota, was charged with theft of a major artwork and witness tampering. He did not enter a plea when he made his first appearance Friday in U.S. District Court in St. Paul. The slippers, adorned with sequins and glass beads, were stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in the late actor's hometown of Grand Rapids, Minnesota, nearly 20 years ago, and their whereabouts remained a mystery until FBI recovered them in 2018. The indictment says that from August 2005 to July 2018, Solitman received, concealed, and disposed of an object of cultural heritage, specifically an authentic pair of ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland in the 1939 movie The Wizard of Oz. The indictment says Solitman knew they were stolen and that he threatened to release a sex tape of a woman and take her down with him if she didn't keep her mouth shut about the slippers. Solitman was in a wheelchair and on supplemental oxygen during his Friday court appearance. His oxygen machine hummed throughout the hearing and he bounced his knee, nervously breaking during breaks in the proceedings. He responded with yes when the U.S. Magistrate Judge Elizabeth Cohen Wright asked whether he understood the charges against him, but he said nothing about the allegations. A man faces murder charges in Pennsylvania, carrying and carjacking and weapon charges in New Jersey after allegedly killing 3 family members, carjacking vehicles in both states, and evading law enforcement for hours as police mobilized in 2 states, authorities said Sunday. Andre Gordon Jr., 26, is charged in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, with 3 counts of first and second-degree murder, aggravated assault, robbery, and other charges, according to court documents. In New Jersey, Gordon is charged with first-degree carjacking and weapons offenses, New Jersey Attorney General Matthew J. Platkin said in a statement Sunday. The string of violent acts is the latest in a horrific litany of illustrations of how illegal guns and assault rifles can empower one aggrieved and disturbed actor, Platkin said. We will pursue justice for the victims and hold the defendants accountable for his reprehensible actions. Court documents in Pennsylvania don't list an attorney for Gordon, and a number listed in his name wasn't in service. New Jersey authorities said they had no information as yet on a defense attorney for Gordon in that state. Gordon carjacked a vehicle in Trenton around 8:40 a.m. Saturday before driving to Levittown in Falls Township, Pennsylvania, and killing his stepmother and sister, authorities said. He then drove to a second location in Levittown and killed the mother of his 2 children, authorities said. The victims were identified by Bucks County District Attorney Jennifer Scorn on Saturday as the suspect's 52-year-old stepmother, Corinne Gordon, and his 13-year-old sister, at the time of the shooting in that home. He is also charged with having beaten Daniel's mother with the assault weapon. She was taken to a hospital for treatment. 3 people were killed and an infant was hospitalized in critical condition after an SUV crashed into a bus shelter in San Francisco, authorities said Sunday. 2 victims, including a child, died at the scene of the crash Saturday afternoon in the city's West Portal neighborhood. Police said 3 others were taken to hospitals. The 3rd victim, a woman, later died at a hospital, police said. The infant was being treated for life-threatening injuries, police said. The driver of the white Mercedes SUV was among those hospitalized, according to the press. The San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency said Saturday it was investigating the cause of the crash in collaboration with the San Francisco Police Department. San Francisco Mayor London Breed said on X, formerly Twitter, that she had visited the scene of the collision on Saturday. She called the incident heartbreaking. Residents left flowers at a growing memorial where the crash occurred, the press reported. The advocacy group Walk San Francisco planned a vigil Monday evening at the site. As Haiti once again spirals into chaos with another wave of gang violence, a number of government and aid agencies reported Saturday that their facilities and aid supplies have been looted. Gangs have raged through Haiti in recent weeks, attacking key institutions and shutting down the main international airport. The chaos has pushed many Haitians to the brink of famine and left many more increasingly desperate conditions. On Saturday, UNICEF said one of its containers containing essential items for maternal, neonatal and child survival, including resuscitators and related equipment, were looted in the capital of Port-au-Prince main port, which was breached by gangs last week. Looting of supplies that are essential for life-saving support for children must end immediately, and humanitarian access must remain safe, Bruno Mays, UNICEF representatives in Haiti, said in a statement. The agency said the looting and overall violence has further cut some of the country's most vulnerable from basic supplies, coming at a critical moment when children need them the most. That same day, the Guatemala's foreign ministry said that the offices of its honorary consul in Haiti was ransacked, but it didn't give any details of damage or theft, nor did it say who was responsible. The ministry said only paperwork and documentation of the last 4 or 5 years had been previously transferred to the Guatemala embassy for Haiti, which is located in the neighboring Dominican Republic. Chaos is nothing new to Haiti, but the recent upheaval has been particularly brutal. The violence has left Haiti's government in a state of turmoil and prompted Prime Minister Ariel Henry to pledge that he will resign a key demand of the gangs. The United States had flown in military forces to beef up security at the American embassy and seemingly quash speculations that senior U.S. government officials might be leaving. Global ride-share giant Uber will pay 272 million Australian dollars to settle a long-running dispute with Australian taxi and hire car drivers who lost out when the company entered the Australian market. A class action against Uber had been expected to go to the trial in the Supreme Court of Victoria on Monday, but Maurice Blackburn lawyers representing 8,000 taxi and hire car drivers said the case will be dropped because Uber agreed to the financial settlement. Maurice Blackburn principal lawyer Michael Donnelly said that drivers and car owners suffered financial losses due to Uber's aggressive entry into the market in 2012, and that company consistently attempted to avoid compensating them. On the courtroom steps, and after years of refusing to do the right thing by those we say they harmed, Uber has blinked and thousands of everyday Australians joined together to stare down a global giant, he said. An Uber statement described the complaints of the taxi industry as legacy issues and said rideshare regulations did not exist anywhere in the world when the company started more than a decade ago. The rise of ride-sharing has grown Australia's overall point-to-point transport industry, bringing with it greater choice and improved experiences for consumers, as well as new earning opportunities for hundreds of thousands of Australian workers, the statement said. Since 2018, Uber has made significant contributions into various state-level taxi compensation schemes, and with today's proposed settlement, we put these legacy issues firmly in our past. It is the 5th largest class action settlement in Australia's history and comes 5 years after the action was launched. A man fell to his death from a hot air balloon Monday as it passed over suburban Melbourne, Australia's second largest city. The hot air balloon took off from Melbourne's northern suburbs early in the morning and was in the air for about 30 minutes before the man fell from the basket. The body was found in a residential area that Victoria State Police closed off to traffic. The balloon landed safely many miles from where the man's body was found. Police said it will prepare a report for the coroner, and the death is not being treated as suspicious. Police are also speaking with the balloon's pilot, other occupants and witnesses. The National Commercial Hot Air Ballooning Industry and the Australian Ballooning Federation expressed condolences for the man's family and friends. Hot air balloon baskets are designed with safety in mind, specifically to prevent passengers from falling out accidentally or from any accidental exit. Their written statement said passengers and the pilots are understandably traumatized by this tragedy, and the operator is arranging psychological support and counseling for all affected. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with his New Zealand counterpart Monday as China's most senior diplomats began a tour of the country and Australia. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Winston Peters greeted Wang in Wellington, New Zealand's capital. There have been some significant developments since we last met, not least a global pandemic that impacted both our countries, Peters said in his opening comments of their formal meeting at New Zealand's Parliament House. Today is a vulnerable opportunity to reflect on the challenges and opportunities that are now before us. Wang is the highest-ranking Chinese politician to visit the country since his own previous visit in 2017. New Zealand has had strong economic ties with China in recent years and was the first developed country to sign a bilateral free trade deal with Beijing in 2008. While in Wellington, Wang will also have brief meetings with Prime Minister Christopher Luxon and Trade Minister Todd McClay. China looks forward to working with the two countries to deliver on the common understandings between the leaders, enhance strategic communication, deepen mutual trust, advance exchanges and cooperation, promote the steady and sustained growth of the China-New Zealand and China-Australia comprehensive strategic partnerships, and contribute to world peace, stability and prosperity, Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said. Wang will arrive in Canberra, Australia on Wednesday to meet with counterpart Penny Wong, with dialogue between the pair expected to centre on the case of detained Australian Yang Hengjun. It will be the first time the two foreign ministers have met face-to-face since Yang was found guilty of espionage following a closed trial and sentenced to death with a 2-year reprieve in February. Also on the agenda will be the removal of the last remaining trade tariffs that were imposed by China in 2020 and were widely regarded as punishment for the previous Australian government passing laws that ban covert foreign interference in domestic politics, for barring Chinese-owned telecommunications giant Huawei from rolling out the Australia's 5G network due to security concerns, and for calling an independent investigation of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's the international news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. Niger Republic, junta revokes military agreement with US. Yemen, Houthi rebels detonate explosive near ship. Pakistan, airstrikes target Taliban hiders outside Afghanistan. Russia, Putin win fifth term with 87.97%. United States, flights carrying citizens from Haiti arrive Miami. Australia, Uber to pay $178 million to cab drivers. I am Valentina Lawrence. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on all our social media platforms: on X, Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram, Atlantic TV Network. You can watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Do remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.